Hello, my loves. Just a disclaimer to the beginning of this video. I am not a professional and by no means claim to be a professional. So if someone is in danger or needs any help, you need to contact someone. So, to begin, my last video was very abrupt and very straightforward, and I realize that. But you have got to realize this is my healing journey. This is how I'm going to put it. And I'm also being bombarded by questions from you guys and how to deal with things. I had a lady talking to me that is going through mental, physical, spiritual, any kind of abuse that she can imagine, and she needed me to be very direct and abrupt with her. So, sorry about that. If you were offended by that, there was no point with that. Anyways, on to my next topic. I had a very, very, very loving man come to me on Instagram, and he wrote me a letter which I would love to share, and he said he really wouldn't mind. So if you guys would like to hear it, I will read it all off in my next video. But yeah, it would take up the whole video basically just to read his letter, because it is just a love story from start to end, you know, what he's doing right now. Anyways, this man has been with this woman for 13 years. They're married. She's an alcoholic. She goes back and forth between, you know, rehab, not drinking, and then, you know, going through a relapse and getting back into alcohol and drinking again. So his question is to me is how he should handle it and when he knows that it's time to give up. First and foremost, you need to know that loving an addict is a very difficult thing. For me, I have had many relationships with addicts. My father was an addict. I was an addict myself. I am an addict myself. I actually turned to alcohol myself at one point in my life, at one of my lower points when I didn't feel, you know, strong enough. And so I am a binge alcoholic, and just because I don't drink anymore, that I'm still an alcoholic, and the tendencies will be there. I have that addictive personality, and it will be there, so I have to avoid alcohol. Anyways, he goes on to tell me, you know, the beginning of the relationship was amazing, and of course it always is. It's, you know, the honeymoon phase, and you guys are great, and he didn't realize how deep rooted her alcoholism was at that time. So, a lot of people want to blame him because he would go out with her and party with her, and before they were married, obviously, and now they have children, and he is trying to better everything for their marriage, for their children. It's just a big old mess, and my heart goes out to you. The first thing of advice that I want to give you when dealing with an addict is that your love cannot be contingent on the addiction, on the addict part of them, because that is part of them. You can separate the addict from the addiction, but it is still part of them, and if you cannot love them being an addict, then it's time to move on. Time to go. My second advice is that they can only change if they want to change. You cannot force them to change. You cannot constantly berate them and pressure them, because that, you know, makes them feel inferior. And most of the time with addicts, they have a low self-esteem. They're very weak. I've been there. I know this. You are trying to numb your feelings because it's just too much for you to handle. So you have to be compassionate towards them. And I know that's a lot of times, because they can be manipulative, they can lie about things, and they can hurt you beyond belief. So it's very hard to have compassion for them, and you want to ride off of your anger. And that's a lot of what he's doing as of right now. Um, he basically said that, gave her the ultimatum that he's done with her if she doesn't get clean. And doesn't do this and doesn't do that. And most of the time, when you do that with an addict and they're not ready for that, they will run. And it is not your fault. That is none of your fault. It's just they know deep inside that they're too weak to deal with any type of emotions. And whenever people turn to addiction to deal with their emotions, any part of their life, they use that as a coping mechanism. And when that is taken out of their life, they do not know how to handle the overwhelming emotions that they have suppressed and numbed for so long. So you have to take that into account too, because he's saying she's acting like a crazy person, which she will, because she's feeling all these emotions that she never had to feel. Um, and another thing is too, especially with me, I wanted to help too much and be there and fix them and da 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 da. And basically, he is taking on the father role with her, and that's not what she needs. She has a father. He's not her father. That's her partner in life, and he needs to stand beside her and work on this as a team together. I did this in my relationship, and I know, you know, I tried to help him and be motherly and nurturing, and that's just in my nature though too. But you can't do that. That's not your role. That's not your place with them. You can be, supportive and nurturing. What I have found out, the best things to do with addicts is to create your own boundaries, create your own timeline without letting them know. You have to stand up for yourself and what you're going through. I mean, if this is affecting you so deeply, then you have to, without giving them an ultimatum, because my mom did this with my dad a lot of times. She actually would have him sign papers, like little letters, little notes saying, I won't drink anymore, I'm never going to buy alcohol again. And, that kind of stuff doesn't work. The only thing that works is them awakening and seeing that they have an issue. And a lot of times it takes you stepping back and taking away your love to make them realize that. And then there's people that come to me and say, okay, I was with this addict, now they're in recovery and now they don't want to be with me. Well, sometimes it's because you remind them so much of their addiction and their inferior ability to deal with their emotions and stuff. So it's too hard for them. Not saying that they won't ever come around, but at first it's really hard for them. Yeah, you just have to be very supportive, be very open-minded. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read through all of his questions and stuff at the same time as I'm talking to you all. But when it comes down to it, it's basically how much you can actually take and how much you want it. You can go to Al-Anon meetings on your own and find out different tips from them to deal with being in a relationship, being married to an addict. I know that it is a tough, tough, tough road to go down. And my heart goes out to both of you, because either end of the spectrum is not easy at all. And I hope that she will have that awakening and understand, like I did, that that's toxic to your life, and you have to learn to deal with your emotions and come up with better coping mechanisms. And it's just it kills your spirit. It changes you completely as a person, and it's sad to watch someone, especially that you love, go through that. It's it's heartbreaking. And like I said, your love can't be contingent on whether they are clean or not. You have got to go through that roller coaster with them, and if you're not mentally strong enough to handle that, then there's no question about it. You just have to let go. And if you are holding on to that anger, holding on to that resentment, that's not going to work out at all. And but with him, she is clean, but they are separated, and she wants to work things out with him. And because she loves him and says that, yeah, yeah, they've invested so much into each other and their family and their children, and I understand that, but he is scared to trust again, which will take time. She's gonna have to prove that to you. There's no other way to get that trust back by, you can, she can say it over and over and over again that I'm not going to do this again, but she's got to prove it. She's got to show it in her actions and, by the way she's handling things. He's saying that she is going to therapy and stuff now, which, yeah, sometimes that helps, sometimes it doesn't. Um, it's just like with anything, you have to make sure that you have a good connection with your therapist and they know everything. And um, a lot of people go to therapy wanting to get fixed, but they won't tell them everything too, so that's not good either. Uh, and yeah. Um, my advice is just to be as supportive as you can. If you feel like you are not mentally strong enough to handle the situation, then you, you can't let that constantly. And you have to let go of everything from the past. You have to kind of start fresh because you have all this build up. You're gonna have to go through some kind of counseling or self reflection of your own, because a lot of times you're saying that you got blamed for a lot of the stuff that she went through. Well, I'm not saying that you are to blame, but you have a part in it. There is always something that you allowed, or it just there's always something. Everybody wants to always point the finger at the other person, but you have to look inside and self reflect and figure out, what you might have done wrong too. Because, I've done this in my past relationships that, all I wanted to do is point the finger at the other person. And a lot of times when you're angry and everything, that makes them feel worse, and you have to remind them that they are an amazing person and that their addiction doesn't define them. And the more that you bring them up instead of trying to knock them down and tell them what a piece of crap they are because they can't handle stuff and they can't do this, or you're horrible because you relapsed and you went back and you drank, and just nonstop, criticism and hurting them like that, is how's that going to make them want to stop? They're just going to feel so worthless that they're going to want to keep on doing what they're doing, because it's like, well, if I'm a piece of shit, I'm a piece of shit. I might as well be drunk while I'm doing it. And you've got to t- you have to be their cheerleader. You have to, and he is amazing, and I give you so many props for everything that you've been through, because he has done a lot of things very good with her. and been very supportive, and a lot of times it doesn't seem fair because you just want to lash out at them and hurt them too because they've hurt you. But that's a very immature way of looking at things. And you got to think of addiction as a disease, and it is something that is somewhat beyond their control. They have to, treat it. They have to find that inner strength again. And if you are constantly telling them that they don't have it, then that's not helping. You have got to tell them, I love you as a person, whether you are drinking or not. You're an amazing person. You're an amazing mother. You're an amazing wife. Um, but this is hurting me though too, and I like you more whenever you're clean. Not that you're a horrible person whenever you're drinking, but you're better for everybody whenever you're not. So you got to be careful about how you word things, because whenever you do attack somebody with an addiction or try to force them to get out of their addiction, it it backfires on you. It comes back around, and they feel very inferior, very weak, and most of the time, like I said in my previous video, addicts don't have the self-esteem that they should have. They don't have the self-worth. They don't have the inner strength, because they've always relied on this substance to get them through and numb it out and not have to deal with that. And it is a very slippery slope for them. They and that's a lot of reasons why addicts will go for a while and be okay, but then they'll go to that relapse, because it just gets to the point where everything is just so overwhelming they can't handle it anymore. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of people saying, "Well, that's not fair. They did this to themselves," and yada da da da. And I get that perspective after dealing with that with my childhood, and everything else. I understand that it can be very hurtful, and if you can't separate yourself out of that hurt and that pain, then you're not going to be any use to them, and they're not going to be any use to you. So, loving an addict is hard. It's very hard. But if you act like more of a team together, be more loving and compassionate and supportive of them, whether they're drunk or not, that will help them realize that they have more to them. You have to, and I've said before that you can't seek validation from people, or people can't help you build up your inner strength, but you can in some ways, just by the way that you go about the situation in a positive light instead of a negative light, and just be very understanding that, put it, I know you went through this, and this is why you turned to that alcohol, and that had to have been so hurtful for you. But do you think there's another way that we could get through this without you drinking? Do you need to talk to me? Tell me how I can help. You say stuff like that to them instead of, "You're such a horrible person. I can't believe you did this to me." And the reason I'm saying this is because I did this. And I know it doesn't help. It doesn't work. It makes them feel worse than what they were. And when somebody doesn't have that self-esteem already, and you beat them down more, then they're just going to run to what they are familiar with, and that is their addiction, and escape again, because they're feeling even lower from you. And if you really love somebody, you don't want to make them feel lower. I mean, I feel horrible that I did this to a person in my life, and that is something that it's a learning lesson, and like I said, he has acted like me a lot and been hurt and upset and, basically want to punish him and yell at him like a child and, be fatherly and things like that. But you can't be like that. And if she is trying and you're trying and you want to start over again, you have to let go of all that shit from the past. You have to start anew, start fresh, and work on just being very loving and supporting. And that's what they need. Me being an addict myself, I know that's what they need. And if they get that comfort, they get that support, they can keep building up their inner strength. And each time they relapse will be fewer and farther between. There's some cases that are just hopeless, but there's a lot of times that this can be fixed. It's they have to dig deep into themselves and find out the core root of why they actually started their addiction and why yeah and why they keep turning to it. And like I said, most of the time it's because of the inner strength. They don't have it. They're very weak. They're very insecure. They've um, they've been put down by a lot of people because of the way that they act or they feel or they don't feel. And and you can't do it like that. You have to be supportive, understanding, loving, and your love cannot be contingent on whether they're in a relapse or whether they're clean or not. You have to be there for them 100% of the time. And if you truly love them, it will completely make a difference. And if, like I said, if you feel too weak at this point and you're just too hurt and angry at this point to even keep trying, then do her and yourself a favor and just, be done with it, because you're not going to help each other at all by being angry and bitter and bringing up past issues and stuff like that. Because who does that help? Does that help her to know? She knows deep inside that she failed you, that she feels like she's not good enough for you, that she has all these hurt emotions that she is suppressing. And you've got to give her that love, that it, and it has to be unconditional, and you have to be strong enough to be able to take it on. I mean, you basically have to be strong enough to carry both of you for the time being, and be strong enough to bring her up too. So you have to work on you to make sure that you have that inner strength, that you are positive that you can do this. Because if you are feeling very vulnerable and very weak and very hurt too, then you're not going to be able to help her. So I hope some of this advice might have helped. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I've been on both ends of the spectrum. Growing up with an alcoholic father, being in relationships with addicts, being an alcoholic myself. I, I can see from both points of view. So, yeah, and I know from previous relationships what I did wrong. So, I can kind of warn you not to go there, because it doesn't work. So, and if you are suffering from an addiction yourself, I I understand. I get it. I get it. Just look deep inside. Go off your faith. Turn to people that love you unconditionally like that. Turn to any kind of help. I know a lot of people are ashamed and embarrassed of their addiction. But that's just, one of the ways the addiction wants to play mind games with you and say, ooh, if you tell anybody, that's just showing them how weak you are, and they're just going to criticize you even more. And it's just a bunch of weak excuses. So that's why I was very open and honest about what I've gone through in my life. And I hope that helps you understand things, because I don't drink now, but I'm still an alcoholic, and I always will be. I know that if I would pick up any amount of alcohol, that I wouldn't be able to stop, because that's just how I am. I mean, and then once I get into it, it's like, oh, you get that numbing feeling back again. It's addiction is a son of a bitch. It's not, easy for anybody because it's, you get this suppression from your emotions, but a lot of times you have to realize that, okay, I got hammered last night and I didn't have to think about anything. But then all that shit comes crashing back down to you in the morning when you're sober again. So then you gotta drink again to get that out of your head. It's a continuous cycle of abuse, and it's a tough one to break. And like I said, if you are an addict, my heart goes out to you because I know the pain you're in, how worthless you feel, how, but it's not. That's not you. Don't define yourself by your addiction either. So, and you have that strength. You can get through it. You can change, and just be around loving and supportive people. There's a lot of times people would just rather bury it and hide it and forget that's how you are, and that's not a good thing either, because that'll make you think, okay, I can just do this and pretend like it's not going on, when you really need to be very open and honest about it and realize that this is something that you need to get help for. So, anyways, I hope that helps you, my dear. And by what you're saying, you are doing. I mean, I literally cried my eyes out reading this letter that you wrote to me. It is the sweetest thing in the world. And like I said, I can relate to it on so many different levels, on just about every level there is. I can see myself in your wife, I can see myself in you, so I hope that something that I've said to you, you can pull something out of it. So, anyways, I hope you all had an amazing holiday and Christmas yesterday. So, I love you all, and I hope you have a good day.